So I thought today I would take the time that I have in the sermonette to give you a report, if I could, from camp. And so as you know, we've been to, the boys and I, actually it's all mixed up, but I was at 2 camps, let me just say that. So I was at 2 camps the past month, and they were teen camps, and we've got one more to go. We've got a preteen camp coming up in a couple of weeks, so we're excited about going to that as well. But I want to tell you a little bit about the overview of camp. If you haven't been, I think it'd be interesting for you. Some of the things we did, what we learned, and I think how God blessed us at camp and should continue to do so. We expect to do so through the years to come. But each year, basically, I think they start in November, a group of ministers get together and they come up with a theme for the camp year. And they apply this theme across all the camps, whether it's preteen or teen camp. So I don't even know how many there are, 8, 10, I'm not sure, but when you put them all together. But they apply this theme all the way across camp, and they use it for Christian living presentations that they give in the mornings, and then they usually will give something in the evenings at what they call campfire. And it's pretty hot to have a campfire, but believe it or not, we have campfires. You just want to stay away from the campfire. But I'm going to get to that Christian living information in a little bit, but let me give you a kind of overview of how camp goes typically on a regular basis. So in this case, Catubik had 88 campers this year. It was a little bit down, and I think that had to do with being a week earlier, so that some of the kids up in the Northeast didn't get out of school in time. And then at Pinecrest, we had 122 campers, I think, when it was all said and done, and it was a full camp. It was a real busy camp we had this year. And I tried to learn the names. I did my best, and I am not good with names at all, but I think I learned half of the kids. I'd say half of them at each camp. Now, if you ask me now and you put them in front of me, I don't know that I would remember, but something was wrong with my brain, because I could know somebody for 20 years and I look at them and I can't remember their name. I think it's being under pressure of, trying to remember their name when I see them. So I'm working on that, trying to get them to know them a little bit better. But it's nice to get to know the next generation that comes up in the church. I mean, they're going to replace me and you one day, and they're going to be the next leaders of the church. So it's good to get to know them and to help them in their walk to the Lord. So get to know who they are, what their weaknesses and strengths are, and how to help them to strengthen and encourage their faith. Because for me, camp made a significant difference in my life when I was 14 and when I was 16. And so I'm hoping that it will do the same for them, that sometimes there's just one little nugget. If you can just get one nugget, to hold on to, that can carry you through. When you listen to a message, oftentimes you don't remember the whole thing, but maybe there's one thing in there that you just hold on to. So we're hoping that there's just one thing that they can hold on to that can kind of carry them through and make their lives more stable. And this is a really good group of kids that we had both at Catubik and at Pinecrest. Some of them, though, don't have really stable home lives. And for some of them, you can tell that because by their behavior, but you just offer them some grace and support and try to help them get through those bumps and, kind of teach them this is kind of the way you behave and this is the way you act. And most of them, if not all of them, maybe there's 1 or 2 that won't take it, they'll take that, and they'll try to move forward, and they'll try to make themselves better because of what you tried to teach them. So basically, camp starts on Sunday afternoon when they check in. I mean, we hit the ground running. They get usually it's like a camp activity where like games or something like that, just to try and get them interacting, because some of them know each other and some of them don't. I know in Pinecrest, I saw a couple people who were at Catubik, and I talked to them there. It was nice to see a friendly face, and I said, how many people do you know here? And they're like, I don't know anybody. So they start to get to interact. They get a time to get to know your dorm. So they get together and they start learning everybody in their dorm, and then usually have some evening activity that first day, and then the next morning it's up bright and early. And so if the counselor wants you up at 6 o'clock, you're up at 6 o'clock, and maybe it's 6:30, and you're hitting the ground running. I like Catubik better in one sense in that breakfast didn't start till 8. But Pinecrest, it was 7:30, so the morning starts a little bit earlier for Pinecrest than it does for Catubik. But every morning after breakfast, then they go to a Christian living class. So that's how they start off the morning. And everybody's together. I think in Catubik they used to separate them, but now they keep everybody together. And so they had themes this year on each day. So typically what will happen is they'll take some certain part of the theme and they'll talk about that for about 45 minutes every morning before then you finally disperse and you go to your different activities. So in the mornings, you usually have 2 activities, and there's a variety of stuff. And what's at Pinecrest isn't always, not necessarily at Katubic. They all have different sorts of activities. So I'm not going to tell you each one, but what's at each one. But things like archery, riflery, they have team building, arts and crafts, basketball, which I was over at Katubic, speedway or field sports, which I was helping out with at Pinecrest, and we also did have like a 2-hand touch football, which was fun as well. So we were able to do stuff like that. They did have a float trip, all-day float trip at Pinecrest, which is sort of that's a highlight for a lot of the kids. Now, some of the kids a little bit nervous about it, but a lot of kids just love it. It's an all-day event. They go out in the Black River, and they leave right after Christian Living, and they come back right before dinner. And so they're out, all day long, and usually you can tell because they come back and they're red. They don't put sunscreen on, but they are excited. Oh, one thing that was different this year at Katubic was they had horseback riding, and that was pretty neat because a lot of kids had never ridden horses before, and so that was pretty much. Was that an all-day event or was that a whole afternoon event? I think that was a whole afternoon event. So it covered basically what you would normally have for, like, say, 3 classes in the afternoon. So you had basically 5 classes, if you want to call it that, of activities throughout the day with the lunch interspersed. And of course, it's very hot at both camps, and so you're constantly drinking water, getting Gatorade or electrolytes mostly out there to make sure that kids are getting well hydrated. They do have soda machines at Pinecrest, which they don't have at Katubic, but they do make them off limits until dinner time, which is a good thing. So you can't have any soda until dinner. So then after dinner, usually it'll have an open period where kids can just get together and talk. Maybe they'll play. Some of them will play. I don't even know the names of those. 9 Square or something like that. That's one of them. And then they'll be in a round in a volleyball. They'll just hit a volleyball around, or they'll just sit and talk. There's just they can get with their activities or with the kids and just sort of enjoy themselves for a short period of time. And then in the evenings, then we come to what we call campfire. And usually what they do with campfire is it's a recap of the day, taking the main theme, which they talked about at the beginning of the day, and they'll rehash it in a shorter form and give an illustration, something that hopefully the kids can kind of grab hold of and take with them. And so I want you to go ahead and look at 1 Corinthians chapter 3, because the theme this year at camp was building on the foundation. So I didn't bring any pictures, but they had a picture of this on the brochure that they had. And underneath this house, they had the Bible. And it was building on the foundation. So I want to read to you, we'll read together here in 1 Corinthians 3. And this was the main, let's say the main linchpin scripture that everything was built on. In 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 10. Okay, so it says, according to God's grace, Paul writes here, that was given to me, I have laid a foundation as a skilled master builder, and another builds on it. But each one is to be careful how he builds on it, for no one can lay any foundation other than that which has been laid down. That foundation is Jesus Christ. If anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, stones, wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become obvious. For the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test the quality of each one's work. If anyone's work that he has built survives, he will receive a reward, and if anyone's work is burned up, he will experience loss, but he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. So that was the main scripture that we used. Does that have the Bible on it? Okay. So Annika's got it. You can look at it later. They had a couple of, placards or banners, and they didn't have the Bible in that. They just had building on the foundation in that. But underneath it had all the themes for every day. So I'm going to give you kind of what they went through every day. I won't give you details, but day 1 was the blueprint. And they talked about the blueprint of how do you determine how to build on the foundation. And basically, he was going through what a blueprint was and how do you deal with the blueprint and where's the blueprint at? Well, it's the Bible, and how do you use it? So that was the first day, the blueprint, focusing on the plan of salvation. And they had a scripture. We won't turn to any of these, but I'll just reference them. The main scripture, and they asked the kids to memorize these every day as well. And they would often have the activity leads ask the dorms as they came through their activities to quote the scripture. So they always got that repetition all throughout the day. And the first day for the blueprint was John chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. So God so loved the world. There's a great scripture. Everybody seems to know that, but that was the first scripture. And then the second day, and by the way, they usually would have one individual, if they were ministers there, the ministers would give it. If there was somebody who had been there for a while, they would have them give. So it was somebody different every day, in other words, who would give these presentations. The second day was the cornerstone, and they used Isaiah chapter 28, verse 16 about Jesus Christ being this cornerstone tried, and can't think of the other words that were used in there, but basically he was challenged, he was tested, and he was set up as that cornerstone. And so they used that to say, well, how do you align your life? Because that first cornerstone that's set in the temple of the foundation, everything is built off of that cornerstone. And then the third day was living stones. And the scripture for that was 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 5. And they talked about how we're living stones and how God is molding and shaping us to be a stone that fits into the temple. And I thought, for me, that really struck really hard. Mr. Troy Phelps gave that presentation, and he just gave some great illustrations, talked about some of the tools that they used in the quarry when they built, they were cutting down the stones to fit into the temple, because you couldn't do it in the temple. The Bible says you can't have any, hammers or any noise going on in the temple. They had to do everything outside and then bring the stone into the temple, and these were very heavy stones, so you had to make sure they fit just right. And then the fourth day, they talked about spiritual tools, and they used 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. And the spiritual tools, of course, they mentioned some of them, and they're interactive, so they're asking the kids what they think about these and what would they use as spiritual tools. So they talked about, fasting, they talked about prayer and meditation and some of these things. But the illustration that evening at campfire was really interesting, because Mr. Phelps brought up a 2x6x8, and he put it on some sawhorses, and he had himself all latched up with some power tools. And so he invited some kids down, and then he would say, I'm going to give you this screw, and I want you to put these screws into this 2x6. And so he gave one of them like a wrench, and he gave one of them a straight slot screwdriver, and he gave one of them a Phillips head screwdriver. It was a Phillips head screw. And then he gave one of them a hammer, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, okay, go ahead and try and get these things into the board. And of course, he's talking while they're doing it. It's very humorous because they're having a hard time, and then you hear the hammer start banging, and everybody starts laughing because of that. And so then he breaks out his impact driver and just drills it right down. So that was sort of his illustration. He had some other ones too, like with, I think he had like a handsaw because he wanted him to cut it. He gave one like a hacksaw, and he gave one a hammer. And I don't remember what the other one was. It was a really fine tooth burr, something to clean burrs off or something. It was something like that. And that was very humorous to see them do all this sort of stuff. And of course, then he just breaks out his power saw and just rips it right off. And so I thought those were great illustrations. There were so many others that they had, but they do a really good job at really focusing their energies on the kids and trying to get them engaged. And then the last day, day 5, was talking about built on the rock. And that was taken from Matthew chapter 7 and verse 24. And of course, as you cut to the last day, you're talking about building your life and how you're going to do that on the rock that is Jesus Christ. And so how to weather life's storms, I think, through that, because they talked about building on the bedrock, because the storms are going to come. Don't build on sand. So they kind of went through some of those things. On the Sabbath, they had 2 split sermons. This is in Pinecrest. Now in Catubik, they had a sermonette and a sermon. And in Pinecrest, there was 2 splits. Mr. Joel Borton gave one, I gave the other, which was kind of neat because I went to school with Joel. He was in my dorm, so we had some fun with that. And I actually was able to show a picture of him and me when we were in college. And that was really fun. The kids really liked seeing that. They didn't know who he was until I said it, and they were like, oh, I can't believe it. Because everybody loves Joel. If you don't know Joel Borton, he's such a likable guy. He's so friendly and excited, and he just has this way about him with these quips and just really funny guy. So a lot of the kids really like him a lot. And then I gave a split sermon, which actually turned into a sermon, sadly. My name is Tom Robinson for the day. I just talked too long, but I'm going to give that here next week. All right. Well, it won't be the same because you take some, liberties at camp. They give you a little bit of liberties. So, but the content will pretty much be the same, and I'll be doing that next week. And then the last thing I will mention here before I close up here is that there's zone, what they call the zone. Being in the zone is like living within let's say the confines of God's law, the way He wants you to live. And so they call it the zone. They've been calling it this for, 25 years or so, a long time. When it really got popular in the NFL, that's kind of when they latched onto it, and they've held on to it. And so they've got these elements, they call them 7 elements of the zone, and they really try to focus on these. Now at Catubik, they put up these signs. So when you're walking around the campus of the camp, you can see them. I didn't see it at Pinecrest, but when I was on basketball, I would ask the kids the elements of the zone and how they were going to incorporate basketball within the elements of the zone. So it really tried to get them to think about some of these things. But the elements of the zone, if I can remember off the top of my head, fun. I mean, everybody remembers fun. That's the top one. Actually, in the list is fun. And then you have success, support, and structure. I always remember the 3 S's. And then once I get those 4, I just need 3 more. So positive relationships is a big one, trying to create those. And then challenge, which is for a lot of people, things are very challenging. And I will mention this. For Faith, she overcame a challenge herself. We went to riflery, and she said she couldn't shoot a rifle. And so we had a chair that we set up, and she was able to, I don't know if she could aim it very well. I was kind of helping her. But she did load the bullet. She locked the bullet. She squeezed the trigger, and she was scared, very, very scared. But the first day, she got 1 round off. So they had 2 classes. So the second class, I said, you're going to have to do 2. And she's like, no, 1. And I said, every time you say 1, we're going to add another one. She goes, no, 1. I said, that's 3. And then after that, she didn't say anything. So then she loaded it, locked it, shot it. We did it again. And I gave her another one, and we did it again. And we just kept moving right through it. And we did 10. That's the whole lot. 10. She did 10. And then I said, do you want to do another 10? And she goes, this is what she did. And that means, yeah. So we got 10 more, and she shot 10 more. So the goal was 2, but she shot 20 rounds. And she actually hit the target a couple of times. I think the first one, the edge. And the second one, she hit a number 4 on the target. So that was a big challenge, and she overcame that. And then the last one that I'm forgetting was, what am I forgetting? No, the elements of the zone. Inclusiveness. So always making sure that everybody's included in your dorm in any activity. So the kids were really good about that. I will mention another thing too, is that Catubik has a style where they set it up where it's by age group. So you have mostly your same age group. Pinecrest is family style. So you have 18 all the way down to 12. And in some respects, I think that's better because it keeps the cliques down. And you also have somebody that's older that's kind of helping out the younger kids kind of learn the ropes and kind of keep them in line as well. So, okay, so anyway, those elements of the zone is what they use, and they've used them for years to try and create an environment where campers can grow spiritually. So at the end of camp, kids don't want to leave. I mean, they want to stick around, and they're having to, now adults, they're tired. They're ready to go home and get some rest. But the kids really do want to stick around, and they're very sad. Even the ones that are sad about going there at the beginning, they're happy, and they're sad about leaving at the end. So I think camp is, not only good for the campers, but it's also good for the staff as well. And it really serves as a period of service and sacrifice. I mean, someone actually said that they feel like camp is more like the kingdom setting than the feast. And I was like, what's that like? And then I got it, it makes sense because all the kids put their phones away. Nobody's on their phones. Staff, you don't have to, but a lot of them just don't really pay attention to their phone. And I didn't pay attention to what was going on in the world. And it was kind of nice. Kind of nice to just forget everything that was going on back at home or in the world and just kind of deal with what was right there in front of you and focusing on others and helping them. And that's kind of what we're going to be doing in the kingdom, is focusing on others and helping them. So in that respect, I really found it really rewarding and helping kids find a good footing for the foundation in the truth. So I do want to thank you all for your prayers. I know you've been praying for camps, and you'll continue to do so because Northwest, I think, is just ending, if I'm not mistaken, I believe. And we do have some other camps that are going on, preteen camps, which we'll be leaving in a couple of weeks. But is it just start? Southwest just ended. So Northwest is just starting tomorrow? Next week, okay. That's right, because we were going to be gone okay. So it starts here in a week or so. Anyway, so camp is over, but the spiritual building continues. And we know that Christ is the cornerstone, the scriptures are blueprint and the tool, and we are living stone in his house. So please keep your prayers continuing for the kids, for the church, for the camp, and all that the lessons that they can learn, that they can build in their lives and take them through the rest of their lives.